Welcome to Beyond the Now. I'm Liam Millward, founder and CEO of Instant, and this podcast is all about sitting down with people who are shaping the future. These are leaders who have built, scaled, and redefined what great brands can be. Nick, we've done a lot of podcasts together and excited to finally have you on my podcast, right? Yeah. We're normally not together in person. I'm in Sydney, you're in New York, and we're online together.
Yeah.
And we've done so much together over the last couple of years. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Excited to be here.
You're known as the DTC Guy. Everyone knows you as that. Maybe give everyone a bit of an intro if they don't know who you are. And
So my name's Nick. I was named the DTC Guy at some point over the few years I've been working in DTC and e-commerce. But my quick story is, I worked, I'm just a marketing guy. I started in high school doing a lot of celebrity social media and kind of got very interested in the world of just social marketing, social media, content. After that, I ended up joining an ad tech company right out of high school. Spent 2 years there, kind of learned everything about advertising technology, programmatic ads, bidding, auctions, DSPs, all that kind of stuff. And then ended up doing a little brief stint where I was running Snapchat geofilters for different companies. Wow. So it was like we had a wide range, we meaning me and another friend of mine at the time, who I met through Twitter, I think. We would do G-Eazy's tour. We would design a Snap geofilter and then cover the arenas or the places he would be playing. And then we figured out there's a sponsor model where you could go to these games that are, massive, like Cooking Fever or Candy Crush, and build them geofilters and then put them across all of the large stadium tours that Bieber was doing or Beyonce was doing.
And that was super hype at one point, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could. I remember buying Staples Center airspace for a geofilter for maybe $45, and I think we sold it for $10,000 to some gaming company. That lasted probably a month before Snap was like, "Hey, we see what you're doing here." And then did some freelance media buying, and then that led me over to this company called Hint, which is a flavored water company. Joined them, and their goal was to figure out how to crack the code on direct to consumer. I was there for 2 years and then moved out to New York, joined an agency that lasted 2 months, and then basically just started consulting and, essentially created my agency just by consulting and then hiring one person at a time.
When you were in high school, but kind of before all of this, you started, running social media for people like Pitbull, for example.
Yeah.
How did you get into that in the first place?
So my cousin started a TV show on the Indian TV network called Sony, which is, has 20 million or 200 million. I think 20 million viewers was just attributed to her show. But, the population of India's TV and content is so vast. So she had a bunch of stuff going on there. And I said, this was when I was probably in 10th grade. I remember I was in SAT classes during the summer, and I was then running her Facebook page. I was like, hey, give me $900 a month. I'll run your Facebook, your Twitter for you personally, but also for the show. And I got really good at figuring out what triggered people to share or comment or send something around, the concept of dark social. And that's basically how I got into, I started doing social there. Then my cousin did an event in LA where I was basically brought in to help, ended up meeting a couple people through that, and then, met a woman there who was Priyanka Chopra's manager. And then she connected me with Pitbull's manager and was like, you guys need to chat.
It just kind of happened.
Yeah, all very natural. I mean, the week I met her was AP testing week of my junior year. So it was definitely not they're finding me and doing all that. I was just meeting them, and I was a kid who was curious about social and I guess had some opinions on what people were doing on social. At that time too, social was always a one-way broadcasting channel. It wasn't a two-way communicational channel. So I remember...
I feel like that happens so often though. You think you look back on so many founders or people that have been successful, and the journey was just so organic along the way, particularly how they started.
100%.
Obviously, they have to work hard.
It's never intentional, to be honest. I was even, today there's...
You look at the founders who just want to jump on the hype of being a founder, they always fail.
100%. It can't be... You have to Yeah. I mean, you can't start. I mean, if you look at even direct consumer businesses that are like what I call Excel sheet businesses, it's some consultant who saw some white space in the market and decided to jump in and create something. They almost like 9 out of 10 times they don't grow or they can't build that brand. But yeah, to your point.
So fast tracking forward, then you kind of got into this D2C world, started Sharma Brands, which is obviously an incredible collection of brands doing very, very well today. What was that journey like starting?
I mean, I was basically, so I was at an agency and, decided to leave. I was not very much a good fit in the office. I'm not an office culture guy. And so I started consulting, and, the first company that hired me was, I got a message from a Warriors player, like a Golden State Warriors player on Snapchat that I'd met once at dinner. And he was like, hey, my college basketball coach is starting a beverage company. He wants to fly you out to LA and bring you to meetings for a week and just kind of help him figure out what he's doing. And so, at the time I had had all the knowledge from working at Hint. I knew that there was 3,000 or 4,000 beverage companies that launch a year. 2 of them make it on shelf. So I was like, whatever, let me just go meet this guy. He'll pay for me to fly out. He was like, what's your day rate? I was like, I can charge you a day rate? And so went out to LA, and, that brand ended up being Lemon Perfect, which is now a massive company. After that, I came back to New York, and a cafe called Cha-Cha Matcha was like, we want to go direct to consumer. Come help us do that. And then Super Coffee was like, hey, we want to go direct to consumer, help us do that. And so I just kind of started helping all these brands. I mean, this was 2019.
Like I said, it just kind of...
Yeah, it was all natural. It was all inbound. I had a Twitter presence, which probably helped. And when I had written on Twitter that I was leaving Hint, that tweet had like 200,000-300,000 impressions. So a bunch of people were already hitting me up for a side project or something.
Yeah.
So that was kind of just how it started. And then since then, everything's just always been natural. I mean, even the larger clients we work with, whether it's a Diageo or, Taco Bell, like those are all just inbound of people who have seen the work or seen the content or, consume it.
I think it's pretty incredible, the scale of brands that you work with today. And you obviously share a lot of advice amongst founders. And I feel like so many people that share advice, classically, those who can't do teach. And the difference with you is that you've actually done it yourself, and are sharing advice that's so practical.
Yeah.
Not even advice, just learning.
It's just documenting. Yeah. I mean, even like the newsletter, the podcast for sure has become an extension now of the newsletter, I think, where the newsletter is, I just think, okay, what did I do this past week? Yeah. That was an unlock or something that I learned that I can just push out to people. And I try to make all the content I put out, like, on one side of your screen, you can read it, and on the other side, you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Something you talk about a lot with particularly your brands is like this Sharma Red Carpet.
Oh, yeah.
What is that? Explain that to us.
I've always been a guy that values convenience and comfort over everything else. And the same thing goes like with our clients. So for example, like with Instant, right? If we have a brand that wants to leverage Instant's platform to do anything, we already have this set up, but like at the beginning we would set up a call, I'd tell you, hey, these are the types of brands we work with. This is what they do. If we ever introduce you to them, they're just ready to sign. They like need to see a demo, make sure it's real, and then they're ready to sign. They're not really like looking for a sales pitch from start to finish.
Sure.
So, and what used to happen is like, we'd introduce a brand to a company, and then they would get on with like an account exec or a BDR, and they just start pitching, and it's like a very standard sales process. But these brands are like, we don't need this. We're ready to sign right now. We just need to make sure it's legit, finalize the pricing, and we're good to go. So we created this concept called the Sharma Red Carpet, which is like, hey, if we bring you a brand, just know that these are brands, the very good brand. We're not going to bring you a shitty brand. And, they're ready to get started. We just need to make sure there's good support from your side. Maybe it's a shared Slack channel. Maybe it's just, the fact that if it's like a big brand, you come on and say, hey, that you're involved, whatever. But it's just basically like, hey, just make sure that if we send you leads, you take care of them. And that's essentially what we call the Sharma Red Carpet. And then, of course, if there's any sort of like we don't take affiliate fees for any software. We just say, just give that discount over to the client.
I think, and then an extension to that that's pretty impressive is like this 5-minute this 5-minute rule to answer your brands
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well, which is wild. Like
Totally.
it's unheard of for someone, particularly in your shoes, to be
100%.
answering brands in 5 minutes. What's that about?
Yeah, I mean, I've all the companies I've worked at prior, I've always worked in very close proximity to the founder or CEO. And one thing I've also learned over the years is, response times matter. If somebody's really pissed off, but you respond to their message within a minute or two, they're going to be a lot less pissed off than if they're pissed off and then you respond to them an hour or 3 hours later. And regardless of like business hours, I've always been one to like, if you get an email or a text or a Slack that's really important or kind of like red flag, you have to respond right away. So,
do you think it speeds up or kills decisions?
It speeds up. Also, if you have momentum with something, the response time like keeps the momentum, right? You don't want somebody to be really excited and then they're waiting for even 2 hours and now the excitement is dead in their mind because they're on to something else. So, before we had account managers at Sharma Brands, it was just me. I'm like the OG account manager. So for me, it was always really important that within minutes, I'm responding to everybody. And, I also always thought like Mark Cuban responds within 3, like if you email Mark Cuban, he responds within minutes, no matter who emails him. And so I always just thought like,
if
he can do it, why couldn't we do it?
Yeah.
So we have a rule that's basically, if you send us a message, during the weekdays between, opening business hours to midnight at night Eastern time, like you'll get a response within 5 to 10 minutes. And if it's on the weekends, it's maybe within an hour, but like usually we nail it within 10 minutes too.
It's interesting. And you say you obviously have worked with so many founders, CEOs, etc., and you continue to today, primarily, right?
Yeah.
These are the people who generally have a massive problem to solve and want it solved ASAP yesterday. I think that you interview and talk to so many founders on your podcast, and a lot of people maybe don't know who you are in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think you do a great job of sharing the journey of so many other founders and other successful businesses out there. But you obviously work on things like content, podcasts, events, so many things consistently, obviously working with so many brands on the daily as well. And then living in New York City, I mean, it's pretty hectic.
Everything's here.
Everything here, right? How do you manage what Nik does versus what gets delegated? Because I feel like it would be pretty similar for so many other founders as well.
Yeah. I mean, for me, well, you've met Ramiz virtually. Sure. Ramiz is like the second version of me. So he a lot of times also acts as a filter. He'll decide what I'm doing or where I'm going or what I participate in versus where he'll loop somebody else in, whether it's a Sharma Brands thing or an events thing, or maybe he just goes and takes a call. For me, I mean, I try to delegate everything I don't find too interesting. So, anything that's like Excel work, boring work, busy work, I try to delegate out. Anything that requires my like active critical thinking, I like to take that. And, like I love problem solving and decision making. I don't think I'm the best one to analyze, a spreadsheet or that kind of stuff. So I don't really do that. But for me, I mean, most of my stuff is, running Sharma Brands. The content stuff that I do is really like nights and weekends. And then there's the Ecom Founders events, which are, here and there. They're not kind of always. So most of my focus is really around Sharma Brands or just kind of being a supporter to different companies I advise or have invested in.
Sure. Let's dig into some of the brands that you're working with today and kind of just on average what you're seeing across the space. I think there's been so many shifts, particularly in just the general landscape of how brands are growing pretty consistently, rapidly changing. CACs are incredibly high, increasing on the daily. Paid is very volatile, yet still very much the primary way brands are growing. What do you think is kind of like the most overrated or underrated thing that brands are doing today, from your perspective?
I think a lot of people last year, for a few years now, ad costs have definitely risen a lot. And so the brands...
It's no longer just to throw more money in and expect more money out.
Right.
It just doesn't have that effect anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And to that point too, like today you have a lot of brands, what they don't do is figure out the middle of the funnel. They think they can buy the top of funnel and the bottom of the funnel, which the bottom of the funnel you can definitely buy. The top of the funnel, you can put money into it, but it's not received that well when you're just paying for it. The middle of the funnel is where most brands are non-existent. That's like people going to Reddit to search for reviews or see what they're talking about the brand. People searching on TikTok for reviews of the Comfort hoodie, although Comfort does a phenomenal job middle of the funnel. People searching on Google and finding different publications that are reviewing, like that kind of middle of the funnel where people are still, they know about the brand, but they haven't made a decision to purchase, is where most brands kind of fail. But the brands that have a good middle of the funnel are not necessarily the most affected with all the rising costs of paid media, because the rising cost of paid media is essentially a function of higher CPMs, lower click-through rates, and it's really those two things, right? Because after that, it's the website. Now, the higher CPMs is a function of how much does Meta believe your content plays well within their ecosystem. If you have something that is highly engaging, that, if Meta knows that your Instagram page has ridiculous organic engagement, is something that keeps people in the app, on the site, that's getting shared, your CPMs are much lower than if you're just a brand new company trying to run some ads for some random product like a mouth tape, right? And so the brands that are in that middle of the funnel, in a really good way, have lower CPMs, and then of course, see a higher click-through rate. Or if they have a lower click-through rate just because competition is much higher, they're still doing that with a lower CPM. The other piece that a lot of people don't think about is the post-click experience. So once you click, are you going to a website that's just a standard PDP with it tells you to buy it and then it's got 2 reviews at the bottom? Does it have information on how the product was made, where it was made, how it compares to other products in the similar category? Is there an offer there? Is there all of these things I think also make up a good PDP or landing page could have a conversion rate of 10 to 12% if it's done right. So if you're converting
Are you seeing most brands significantly lower than that?
Way lower. I mean, on average, some of our sites we've designed will hover around the 4 to 5% conversion rate.
What do you think are the biggest reasons for that?
It's just education. It's one is how well do people know or perceive the brand coming into the site? So, do they know that this brand is a big brand? Do they know that it's been associated with big names? Do they have the perception that it's a healthy product or that it's going to do good for them? Is there enough social proof out in the market that tells them that this product actually does work and deliver on its promise? And then the second piece is, I totally lost my train of thought there. But yeah, I mean, most websites just don't have enough information, that is basically telling people hey, this is what we are and this is how we're going to help you. And this is why we are doing what we're doing and why we have the, efficacy to do what we do or say what we do. Most brands are just they focus on the ad to sell the product, which the ad's not supposed to sell the product. It's just supposed to get you to click. And then the website is generally, a Shopify theme most brands, they don't necessarily...
Most brands focus on just absolutely all they focus on is getting people to their website.
Yeah.
And they forget about everything post the person getting to their website.
Exactly. And they don't think about what does this person want? Why are they coming in? All of those things are kind of out. Whereas on the ad side, everybody's let's go after different psychographics, different wants, needs, styles of creative. But then you get to the site and it's one site that was built 8 months ago and hasn't been touched. And most brands don't hire developers or development agencies. So
let's decrease CAC by improving our creative rather than making our website better or identifying more shoppers.
Yeah, but today you have to have the ads right. You have to have the targeting right. You have to have the data that feeds back into Meta 100% right. Then you have to have a good offer, a good UX on the website. You have to make sure you're capturing as many organic email addresses that people are inputting. If you can get that way up to 10 to 15%, you're just basically collecting free revenue. Then if you add something like the anonymous shopping collection with Instant, you're getting more people in. And then the follow-up emails, that is all part of the acquisition funnel. That's what a lot of people also just miss out on. That's one of the reasons we do lifecycle marketing at Sharma Brands, is because when we were running Facebook ads, we would be fighting with email agencies like, hey, you guys got to opt in more people. You're opting in 2% on average. And,
no.
Yeah, it's like, what are we spending all this? You're spending $2 a click, and, you're basically paying then, if it's 2%, that's what, I can't even do the math, but it's a lot of money to collect a single email.
Yeah.
And so then we thought, okay, well, let's just do the pop-ups ourselves. Let's design them to be very performance focused. At the time, we started using some company. They got acquired by MailChimp. I went to the MailChimp chief product officer and I was like, you guys can't make this only to MailChimp. That would be the stupidest move of your career and of MailChimp. And then, of course, they did that.
Right.
And all their customers left and went to another one. So, then we started thinking, okay, the welcome flow of people who sign up but then don't purchase or come to our site, don't give us the email, those are two different flows that should be treated separately. One, they know they gave us their email. One, they don't know. And so then we started focusing on building those and optimizing those. And then all of a sudden, the media efficiency gets way better. Your CAC gets better. Your, the payback period of Meta gets shorter. So, I don't even know where we're going with all this, but it's the end of my rant.
We saw, we work with over 1,000 brands, and we saw last year, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, their email retention flows were between 30 and 50%. Of their revenue. Like, it's such a huge channel that so many brands, I feel like it's 10 p.m. at night before the sale launches tomorrow. Holy shit, who's done the emails? Yeah. Nobody's even focused on it. Nobody's thought about it.
Well, also, emails are one of those things that, just like a website, they get completed by an agency at the very beginning and then never looked at again.
Yeah.
It's not like people are...
They're outdated. The offers, like, there's no experimentation.
The design is outdated. They're not, up to... Some emails don't even have the dark mode functionality on them. And it's just like, today design is so connected to consumer trust.
Sure.
If you have an email that looks outdated,
people
are going to think, oh, this company's just going to take my credit card info and I'm probably not going to get my product.
Yeah. But for all of this, particularly with the new brands that you work with or brands and founders that are just getting off the ground, something you advocate for a lot is you need to find your first 100, 1,000 sales before you fuck around with meta ads and, the classic channels of growth.
Yep.
Why do you say that? Because I think it's pretty uncommon advice.
Yeah. I think, the point behind that is really that the brands that we work with, like our agency, even me personally, I'm a performance marketer by trade. I'm not the guy who's like figuring out how you're building community or extending the brand in a way that seems really cool to sell, testosterone supplements or whatever it is. So the idea behind that is like, hey, don't just come to us and try to hire us thinking that we're just going to run ads and your product is going to sell like crazy. You need to be so good at your job as a founder that you can go out and build the brand and we can work off of what you're creating. Like, performance marketing is like putting an image in Google Docs, right? You put an image in, and if it's a lower quality image, you can't really stretch it. You can't, if you have a low quality brand, you can't run performance marketing behind it. But if you put a really high quality image in, you can stretch that thing quite a bit. And that's kind of what we tell founders too, is like, you have to, like when obviously when a lot of the brands we work with launch, we start running paid. But the idea is that you do such a good job building the brand leading up to it, that paid is it's just another like tentacle of what's going on. It's not the entire operation to go get all your customers from paid. Mm-hmm. The other thing too is if a brand does a good job of that, like figuring out who, what, when, etc., why, then our paid stuff gets a lot more efficient out the gate. And we can also just test things without spending money, which I think more brands should be doing a good job of. A better job of. Yeah, because everybody also knows that like if you can crack organic, then you're set, right? Like if you can crack organic, you will 100% crack paid, because paid is just putting money behind whatever's working well on the organic side. But brands who can't crack organic and just go to the paid side and try to build a landing page with an offer and all this and that, like people just get to it and they're like, wait, why am I shopping for this deal? You know, I don't even know what the fuck this company does.
If you were just getting started tomorrow and you didn't want to pump a bunch of money into Meta, but you do want to kind of follow this strategy or advice of, all right, well, don't spend on Meta straight away. And just find your first 1,000 customers. What would you actually do though?
I mean, so I would basically create a list of like 30 reasons somebody would buy this product. Let's say it's like a nootropic supplement, right?
I think this also counts for brands that have even a massive business today and then launching a new product.
Totally. Well, the brands that have a big catalog, it's like you got to figure out what's the punchline of that brand. So like, you know, I remember when we worked with Everlane, like the punchline was the quality of the materials and the sourcing and the, you know, kind of their ethical supply chain. That was like the punchline that you focus on. And then behind that are the products that people are then interested in shopping for. You know, let's say it's like a nootropic supplement. I would write down 30 reasons why somebody would, you know, drink this or take this supplement. And then I would basically film a video talking about each one of those 30 reasons. I'd put it up on TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, anywhere where you can throw content out and see if it sticks. Honestly, probably X too now.
Yeah.
And then I would just consolidate the learnings. You know, it might be that one or two things really pop off on one platform. It didn't get the love on the other, but, you know, it's maybe still a really good angle. And then, you know, based on what's working there, I would just double down there. The whole game is like, like e-commerce is really just an entire game of arbitrage. You have to just keep finding the arbitrage.
Trial, error, win.
Exactly. And like if in this case too, if you can figure out that the first two angles of your new product or your new brand is, you know, moms who are tired and just need a supplement, you know, because it helps them stay focused throughout the day. And, you know, the other audience is like entrepreneurs who want a supplement but don't want to take Adderall, for example. Like you might find that those are your two best TAMs to start with, but once those get exhausted, you're gonna have to figure out new audiences, new creative, new messaging, new positioning, new offer, and figure out how to get in there. But it's all a game of just finding these little arbitrages. This audience wants this way more than what I can sell it to them for.
Sure.
You know?
While we're so deep on data, something you also talk about is like this Monday dashboard and 5 metrics where you can get a super clear understanding of the healthiness of your business. There's so many tools out there at the moment. I feel like attribution it goes in waves of being super popular, everyone's solving it, and then everyone realizes that it's an unsolvable problem and everyone forgets about it again, and then everyone's onto the wave again because there's been some AI agent that helps you with it, and then everyone's off the wave again, and then everyone's back on. Attribution is the constant thing that brands are battling with most, and I don't actually know if it'll ever be solved, to be honest. Like you look at so many tools.
Once you can put like contacts in people's eyes and all those contacts are one company, it'll be solved. But until then, it won't never going to get solved.
And if you added up all the attribution across all your tools, I mean, you're a significantly larger business than you are today.
Totally.
But to kind of overcome this, I mean, there's some ways, right? To understand the healthiness of your business. And something you talk about a lot is like this Monday dashboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I started working in direct consumer, we had no attribution. There was no dashboards. There was no like automated reporting.
No such thing.
Nothing. It was go to GA, go to the back end of this company called Symphony Commerce, which was like what we used before Shopify, and pull a bunch of numbers, put it into a Tableau sheet, double check the math, send a screenshot to the exec team. And, I always just thought like, this is so dumb because founders just want to know a few things every day. They want to know how much revenue they made, how much they spent on ads, what their CPA was, what their conversion rate was, and, maybe a couple of other things. And like how you're pacing for the month, basically, both in spend and revenue. And then at the end of every month, I used to make this massive deck, which basically had like a monthly business review, how it compared to, the general market in a similar category, what we tested, what we learned, and what we're about to test next month. And so I've built a version of the mini dashboard with a couple other SaaS companies, although it never like fully hit. But in terms of they didn't build it the full way, it was like kind of they took the idea and made it their own version. But there's there's, to your point, there's like 4 or 5 numbers every founder cares to know. And, they're focused on, this isn't like your chief growth officer or growth marketer. So the growth marketer will obviously dive in a lot more. But for a founder, if you can get them 5 numbers by text every morning, I don't know why there's not a service that's like, hey, good morning, Liam. Here are your numbers from yesterday. Text me back if you have any questions. And it uses some sort of like agentic responses.
That would be super cool. What are those 5 numbers that you should care about most?
Probably like, top line revenue, net revenue. So revenue minus discounts, returns, total spend. Depending on how big your spend is and how many places you're sold, it could be ROAS or MER, and then maybe how you're pacing for the month. Because really, like, a founder just needs to see, all right, are we ahead of pace? Are we behind pace? Are we on pace? Do we need to move budget around? Do we need to add more budget to hit our numbers? And every company has different motivations. Some companies are like, we need to do everything to hit this top line number, even if that means adding spend. Other companies will be like, well, we need to do everything to hit this contribution margin number. So if that means reducing spend and running another promo, do that too.
Something that, talking about cash and runway and just kind of core finances for the business, I feel like it's in a 50-50 bucket at the moment, where 50% of founders are all in on getting investment from investors for their D2C business.
Yeah.
And then you've got this other huge wave of founders who bootstraps, never want investors. They think it doesn't make sense. And it's basically a divide down the middle. What's your perspective on that?
I mean, I'm always in the camp of like, if you don't need to go raise money, you probably shouldn't. There's also a lot of things that I think people don't understand you can do to go get cash that's not a traditional like VC or angel. If you're like a lot of second time founders.
What do you think are the reasons why you should raise?
Well, if you're broke, right, respectfully, go get some money and then try your idea.
Sure.
And give whoever else put the money in the upside of betting on you. If you need to, like we have a brand that is about to make a big push into Sephora, they need to go get $4 or $5 million to fund the PO, the marketing that Sephora requires, any sort of shelf space purchases. So maybe you need it for something like that.
But have a reason.
Yeah. Don't just do it for, hey, I'm going to go test this idea. I'm raising $2 million on 10. I've seen that happen way too many times. And it's most of the time it crashes and burns. And it's because it may be a first-time, majority of them are first-time founders too. They go raise money. They don't know how to spend it. They spend their first $1 million on mistakes, agencies, branding agencies, a purchase order with a manufacturer that fucks up the fact that, I remember there was a cereal company that I invested in called Catalina Crunch, and their flavoring was supposed to be like 11% in the manufacturer, and it was 13% for a whole run. They had to throw out like $90,000 of product. And, there's nothing you can do about that kind of stuff.
I feel like so many founders, particularly when they're getting started, never surround themselves with the right people, never actually learn from these learnings that so many other brands have had.
I mean, it's really hard.
Well,
like
right?
The guys that are doing it, well, I mean, everybody kind of wants to also, it's hard to get some of the learning sometimes from bigger companies. I think that's why
they're so insular.
Yeah, everybody's like very private about what works, what doesn't work.
Everyone's very sometimes public about what works.
Yeah,
and very
never
private about
exactly.
what doesn't work.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And so there's that. There's also the fact that there's so many things that work for one company that just won't work for another. Like there's also things that are time and place for a brand. Like I remember when I worked at Hint, the founder was always like, hey, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we sponsoring this Cheddar TV? Why aren't we sponsoring this podcast? And I was like, well, the companies that are doing that are in a completely different stage. They have different goals. They're not doing what we're doing. And vice versa. They're not doing the stuff that we're doing that's working really well because they also have different needs than what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that launches, probably 90% of it, if you have 25 or 50K saved up, you could probably put a PO in, test it out, make some content, see what's working, what's not working, and pretty much validate if something's got legs. Obviously, if you're like, I'm going to go develop a pharma company or telemedicine, you have to go raise them.
Right. On the inspiration front, what are some of the D2C brands that you kind of look up to today? You've mentioned a few now, that other brands should aspire to be?
Yeah, I mean, the ones that I tend to like are, they're just ones that have really strong brand presence or like a really good understanding of building a brand. Like for me, Jolie comes to mind, just a very capital efficient business, but also they've done such a good job building a brand that like they're the only company in their space that has a profitable customer acquisition cost, which I think also just speaks to the fact of the brand. Another example is Lemmy with Kourtney Kardashian, but again, not because of Kourtney, but because of how well Simon, who's their CEO, like runs the brand, like their brand campaigns, their brand marketing, the content they put out, it is all like on point. So I guess I'm like performance marketing is in my DNA. So when I see good performance marketing, I definitely appreciate it. But like the stuff that inspires me is the brands doing brand marketing really well, because that's not my specialty.
Brand marketing is hard, and it's also
so hard.
It's if not done right, it's a never-ending pit of money.
Yeah, and Hexclad's actually another great example. Hexclad, or even
amazing.
Caraway.
Grunes more recently.
Yeah,
they're
Grunes too.
Liquid IV, they're doing really well.
Exactly.
Something that these brands do incredibly well at is the brand side of things in an efficient way, I think.
Yeah.
They just win the awareness game.
Exactly.
It's like they strangle all of their competitors' voice in market by consistently being at the top. All you hear about is these brands. It is so top of mind every time you go on TikTok, Instagram, any influencer. And it's not massive billboards in Times Square. It's just the places where their people are. TikTok
Totally.
more commonly.
Today.
On the point around tech stack, I think that's something that a lot of these brands do well. They don't have bloated tech stacks, and they're very critical on the tech that they use.
Yeah.
I think this is something that you push for a lot amongst your brands as well, is being critical on the tech they use, how they use it, and make sure that it's not fluffy metrics around, time saves, but instead actually, is this driving revenue for our business, and can we prove it? And how they prove it. You've been very picky about your tech stack always. What made you have such strong belief in Instant from the very start?
I mean, like I've always been a fan of tech stacks that are founder friendly. Honestly, any service people hire, like I know of agencies that lock brands into these 12-month contracts as a brand new company, and they get completely screwed. I know that there are, SMS providers that exist that lock up your SMS list until you end up paying the full contract out. You can't even download your phone number list that you own. So I've always been very vocal that like everything should be founder friendly. And again, to the point of like the Sharma Red Carpet earlier, that's a part of it, is like, is it a legit platform that is founder friendly and like founder focused too? So, with Instant, I remember we did the demo, and then, like before we did the demo, I thought Instant was one product. We did the demo, and then you were like, there's this, and then there's this, and then you can use this to do that. And then I was like, okay, how much does it cost? And you were like, a flat fee. And I just thought the fact that you can incorporate all this in one platform, it's all unified. Your tech is actually very good. It's not like most SaaS tech, which is janky and kind of lipstick on a pig. And again, from a pricing standpoint, it all made sense too. Like it was just, it seems like a no-brainer. I mean, everybody we've put on Instant has said the same thing. It's just a no-brainer.
And then, I feel like the biggest part is just the speed to value. I mean, it's so quick to get value compared to so many tools.
And the funny thing too is like, if you talk to Instant customers, they're just always like, I opened the app today and there's like another thing.
And then more revenue.
Yeah.
One of your brands that you actually recommended, we were looking at it just before this, in their first 7 days with Instant, they generated an additional $30,000 in revenue.
Wow.
And that was in their first month. And then over the last 4 weeks, they've generated, I think it's 3 weeks, they've generated another $100,000.
It's insane.
In additional revenue, which is wild.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have so many different features, products, etc. But at the core of it, why do you think Instant is so effective? I mean, we've spoken a lot about retention and brands spending so much cash in getting these people to their website in the first place. And once they're there, they're just forgotten about. Majority of people at brands, they never opt in. They never capture their information, all the way through to they never actually have the ability to trigger a flow and an email to retarget these shoppers. whether instant or just other retention tools in market. Why do you think these retention tools are so effective for a brand to focus on?
I mean, essentially, like, it's not like you're getting people here in your funnel that are not interested in your brand. Like, all these people that hit the website have shown some level of intent, and sure, some of them maybe don't want to ever come back to the site or hear from the brand, but there's a good chance a lot of them got distracted or said they're going to come back later or go read about something and come back later. Mm-hmm. So if you're able to capture like 60% of people who come to your site and shoot them a message.
Almost like a reminder.
Yeah, and also in a way that's, I mean, what you're doing too is more like DPA or like catalog ads, but with email and with more context. Like you can use Instant to just create content with generative AI based on that shopper's behavior within certain parameters versus the standard, you go to a PDP and leave, and then you get a generic email saying, you forgot something in your cart, and it's just a picture of the product. So there's a lot more there's just more oomph to it, I guess. But I mean, as far as like why it works so well, I mean, I would ask your engineering team, whatever you guys are doing, it seems to be working than whatever like some of these other companies that claim to do retention tools do.
I mean, I feel like so many of these tools, they're so good at sales and partnerships, and they're absolute legends at selling to you. But once you take the covers off, they just significantly underinvest in product and engineering, which is why they just don't work. And these brands come on board and they leave just as quick as they started.
Totally.
Something you wrote about in your newsletter the other day was AI, and even your conference in New York yesterday, Q4 Summit, there was a lot on AI. I feel like at this point, everyone that's on the forefront of e-commerce at the moment is definitely under the opinion that if you're not embracing AI in your business today, you're basically already behind. Like, it's to the point now where you have some catch up to play if you're not embracing AI in your business. It's such a time save, a revenue add, like all of the above. And so many founders and brands and just people in general, even every day, still talk about AI as a hypothetical. It's, this thing that's coming, it's really cool, we should try it. But the reality is that there's so many tools out there now that you can adopt really, really, really quickly to grow your business. You did a whole newsletter the other day on AI within email, and you kind of mentioned Instant AI as part of that, amongst so many other things. But it seems like you're really excited about AI and the potential that it can have for so many businesses.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, AI was just like anonymous Indians. It was just like something would happen and it's AI. But, now we've got, it's like legit AI, Most people know AI as, it used to just be like if-then statements, right? Like if something happens, then it triggers something else, and that was what was considered AI. And then ChatGPT came along, became the fastest growing consumer app, and that became the new standard for AI, which was essentially generative AI. Chat then evolved to being able to do things like search the web, scan documents, kind of like basically database plus questions, right? You can ask questions based on some set of data. And then we started to see the power of agentic AI, which is essentially like, how do you have 7 versions of ChatGPT that all work together to do something collectively?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of companies, and then of course all these other companies started spitting out their own models. So you have Claude, you got Perplexity, you got Google with like 3 different models. OpenAI has like 7 different models. There's models that can listen to things and listen to tone and pitch. There's models that can watch things and consume exactly how it's being watched. And so, I think, well, one, AI is here, like it's definitely here. There's whether it's Shopify or Meta or your go-to performance agency, they're all using AI in very big ways. The standard is now kind of that, like, if you need to hire somebody, are you sure it can't be done with like somebody plus AI to do something, or somebody offshore plus AI, to create the same kind of caliber of somebody being maybe in New York.
I think a big hesitation at the moment is that a lot of people are still under this, again, like hypothetical, where we'll just stand back and watch it play out. We'll see if the results actually pay off. Can we actually measure the impact? Whereas I think that what are your kind of thoughts now? Should you be waiting or to
No, definitely
use
not
AI,
waiting.
or?
I mean, like if you don't know anything about AI and you're not spending an hour a day just doing random shit with AI, whether it's going to ChatGPT and building some agentic workflow, whether it's going to Replit and creating your own little Shopify app, whether it's going to, and most like SaaS companies now have some level of AI within it, whether it's, like Instant, where you use generative AI within emails. That's not necessarily something that like a human might go in and fully build because your software does that, but understanding the mechanics of how that works and what the parameters are, and like everybody should know what they can do with the AI. If you're
Understand how it works. Understand the
what are the
results.
limitations? Where can you connect in? Right, like a big part too of AI is just like even data organization and segmentation. If you don't have that organized, the AI is going to give you the wrong results. But I mean, marketers have been using AI Facebook's entire algorithm could be considered AI. I've always called Facebook's ad algorithm like a person. I've always thought of it as a person. And anyways, AI is like, it's here to stay. It's like if you're not in it, you should 100% be in it. And you could do things as simple as setting up workflows that take your extra cash and move them into treasuries and back and forth based on cash flow. You could just use it to write copy for Facebook ads or for emails. You could use it to generate all your emails like within Instant. But AI is I don't think it's a thing. It's like a function of how everything else is going to become or going to get built into everything else. Everything from, there's now a software that you can call and tell it what the type of people you want to connect with, and it just converses with you in AI and then does the job for you. Like, it's here to stay. What's crazy too is the innovation pace of AI gets faster each time something else comes out. Everything now gets faster and faster. Like, when ChatGPT or when DALL-E first came out, everybody was trying to figure out, okay, how do we make images with our product on a white background or a different background? And now you've got Google's Nano Banana, which you can throw two random images in and it'll make it perfect.
Yeah.
It'll look like
wild.
somebody just took a very high quality photo. So the pace of the innovation too is insane. And also you have to think about what we see is what we see. That means that it's probably 10 times ahead behind the scenes of like whatever's coming out next.
I feel like the biggest problem is you've either got young people like myself who are not embracing it because they fear their job rather than just making themselves look absolutely amazing with the use of AI, or you've got someone else in the business, generally the founder, or someone who's a little older, that is like, no, we still want full control.
Yeah.
We don't know how this works. We've never set the time aside to learn how this works. And we'd just rather steer clear than say yes.
Yeah, those
but
people
the
are
other thing,
cooked.
it just feels like the other thing that it's the biggest misconception with AI is the control side of things. Like, I feel like AI actually gives you as little or as much control as you want. With an email flow, for example, it can simply just create the copy. Or it can create the whole thing.
Right.
It can generate subject lines based on, 1 or 2 or 3 different formulas, or you can just let it do its thing. And so you still get so much control. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the human that's still telling the computer what to do and giving it the prompt.
Yep.
And it's also just scraping the information from your website or the internet in general, particularly for an e-commerce brand.
Yep.
If you just keep your website up to date and your product pages up to date and your brand up to date and your social media posts up to date, and assuming you're happy with those pages, that's where the AI has to get information from somewhere.
Totally.
And generally the information it's getting is in your control.
Yep.
So we're going into kind of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Q4, busiest time of the year. A lot of mistakes are made over this period, a lot of growth as well. But to have growth, you need to have some wins. But maybe on the negative side of things, what are some Q4 mistakes that you've made over recent years that other founders should avoid?
Like site changes, promo changes too close to the date is always very risky. Credit cards not being loaded up or paid off on time, that'll cut your ads randomly. And it's much harder to get in touch with reps on Black Friday than it is any other random day. I think the other thing too is just like a lot of brands don't test their offers before Black Friday. This year, a lot of brands we work with, we use like Prime Day and some of the dates in summer to test offers and kind of see like, all right, what's the demand for an offer like this? You know, whether it's percentage off, whether it's gift with purchase, whether it's a prepaid subscription at a greater discount, whether it's a buy this, get that free, dollar off amount, whatever it is. But
what's working best at the moment?
Gift with purchases always work well. If you can create some kind of offer that, like I always like to create an offer that has an AOV of maybe like 2 to 4x your normal AOV, but also offers a nice discount, 20 to 40%. And you don't have to give that discount in dollars off your gross, but you can give that as a gift with purchase. So maybe it's like, if you're buying, like Jolie does they do a really beautiful canvas tote bag that's like probably a $50 value. And honestly, to their credit, like it's a very nice quality bag. But then they don't discount $50, but like it's the perceived value is $50 off. So those things work really well. You can also do those in places where you have much better margins. So like I've seen supplement brands do it where like they'll give you 3 months to Othership or 3 months to Calm. Like for Calm, 3 months is going to cost them 44 cents of server costs. But they basically acquired a customer for 44 cents that way. So there's places you can do things like that. The perception of Calm's 3-month thing is maybe $45, but it costs you nothing to do because they want to be in that deal too. And, you now give an offer that's $45 off.
Nice.
Yeah.
If to wrap up, if there's any kind of one thing that a founder should take away from you after listening to this, but more generally listening to your podcast, newsletter, reading so much of your content, I feel like there's some things that stay very, very consistent in what you say. But what would you say is kind of the one thing they should take away?
I mean, build that middle of the funnel. Like I would say build the middle of the funnel and don't get screwed over. Those are like the two big things. And building the middle of the funnel is like, that's building brand, credibility, social proof, excitement. It's just getting people excited about what you're doing and making sure that they also feel like there is community out there that also says that what you're doing is great. And then not getting screwed, meaning like, don't sign up for softwares or agencies that are overpriced, overcharging. The best recommendation I have is like get into a group chat or make a group chat. Find other brands that are maybe around what you're doing or slightly larger. This has been a huge hack for me since like 2017 is I'm just always in group chats where I've got peers who are doing very similar things. It started back when I was at Hint, and I would go to lunch with 4 guys every month, one from Madison Reed, one from Third Love, one from Stitch Fix, and then myself. And, I'd call it the $100,000 lunch because everybody within the next 7 days of that lunch would make an incremental $100,000 from something we learned at lunch.
Wow.
And, I always thought
Third Love is an insane example. I mean, they're a big user of Instant, have been for a while. The best thing is, I feel like from the brands that you just mentioned, is that they're always experimenting.
Yes.
So many brands slow down. They're their own,
or they're
their
like,
own fault in terms of,
they're like, hey, our CPMs are double from last year. Why isn't it working?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the fucking market evolves. You have to keep testing. Whatever worked last year is not going to work today.
Yeah.
And to think that it will, you're just out of touch and delusional.
Love it. Well, I'm really glad we could finally pull
likewise.
this together. I mean, we've worked together for so long now, and thanks.
And now
for
you're
coming
moving
on.
here.
Yes, I know. Excited.
Yeah.
We'll do more of it, and great to hear your thoughts, Nick. Thanks for
Likewise.
coming on
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.